Okay, and then you should be all good.
Okay.
Go.
And they're all allowed in already?
Mm-hmm.
And so now I can just like start video and it might be already on, yeah?
Yeah, it's on. You can, if you want to shut down your video, you can also.
Okay, so it's already on then.
Yeah, you're good to go.
Okay,
And
very
people
good.
will start coming in.
Yeah. Mm.
I'll do this as well.
I want to see the gallery. They may not have their cameras on.
Maybe not. Okay. There you go.
Oh, there we are. Hi, Bob.
How are you?
I'm good. Much better, thank you.
Wait. We're not. Now you have volume.
Okay. No, you
Oh, sorry. Where did it go?
yeah, you're in the wrong direction. Okay.
We challenged. Ask him if he can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Challenging there.
Hey, Chuck. Feeling pretty well over it? Pretty well. You know, I'm not testing positive anymore. I still have a little bit of a cold symptoms, but a lot more energy than I had before.
Sean was visiting us and he got COVID.
When you visited?
While he was here, yeah.
Oh
So,
my goodness.
but it wasn't bad. It was just a stomach thing.
Oh,
His stomach felt bad for several days and finally went into urgent care. They go, yeah. There he's on his cruise ship now going up to Alaska,
where did he catch the ship?
San Francisco. This
Huh?
morning, yeah, they went up and yeah, it looks pretty nice. It's a big one. I didn't know it was that big. I thought it would be just a small one, 2,200 passengers or something. And they sent us pictures of all, so while they were loading up in the dock, they were there for a couple hours before they took off, and they miniature golf, and they got something like, it looks like a paddle ball, or what do they call it, pickleball, and then they've got ping pong tables on the deck outside, and then obviously swimming pools and all that stuff. So
Right.
yeah, the kids should be occupied.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Okay, we have
Is
2
that
minutes.
Chuck Wallbridge?
Yeah, Chuck Wellbridge here.
Hey,
Bob.
Bob.
How are you?
All right.
It's probably been 50 years.
Almost, yeah. I saw you once in LA, I think, when His Holiness was there in '06, but otherwise, yeah.
Yeah, we're all getting old.
Nice
Hmm?
Hi there, big boy. Here, just say hi to Papa. Here. Hi, Papa.
Hi. Can you say hi, Papa?
Here, wait. We'll mute it.
Who is that?
It's our 3-year-old grandson. He wanted to say hi to Papa before he went to bed.
Okay,
There we
nice.
go. Okay,
Very nice.
all right. Okay, there.
Great. Okay, 7 o'clock. I guess it's, I don't know how many people are besides us that I can see, Toby and Bob and Chuck. Sometimes other people are on, but they don't turn their cameras on, so I can't really tell.
You can tell right now there's 3 people on.
You turned yours off.
I turned my video, but it's
Oh.
just me, you, and Toby, and then who's ever there.
Okay, very good. All right, so let me see. I think we left off where we were talking about the selflessness of phenomena. Yeah. And the text says that we can use the same 7-point analysis to do an ultimate analysis of phenomena to find the selflessness of phenomena. Also using the 4-point analysis of production, not produced from self, not other, not both self and other, and not without any cause, like that. Those are ways of getting at the selflessness of phenomena. And and one of the questions that kept coming up is, trying to identify inherent existence, right? How things inherently exist. And the scholars that assert that things inherently exist, they're not stupid. There's, like Bhava Viveka, for instance, he asserts inherent existence on the conventional level. And all of your Chittamatra scholars, like Chandra Goman, for instance, they assert that the perfect existence, which is selflessness, and also products, things that depend upon causes and conditions, they inherently exist. And like with Chittamatrans, they have the 3 natures: the perfect nature, the relative nature, and the what is it called? Imaginary. The imaginary nature. So from their point of view, if things like products did not inherently exist, then any thing that you would refer to would just be imaginary, right? If it didn't inherently exist, it would have to be purely imaginary, a figment of your imagination. And, Prasangika doesn't, when they talk about things being merely designated by name and thought, that's exactly what Chittamatrans say is an imaginary phenomena. Something merely designated by name and thought. But it's just that Prasangika will say that there are rules to things that things exist on the conventional level that are not opposed by the conventional standards, like they're not objects of dreams or objects of defective senses and things like that, but rather stand on the force of convention or the customary use of language and thought. And that's good enough. And then, of course, when the realists say that if a thing does not inherently exist, then it couldn't produce. There wouldn't be anything there to produce an effect. And Nagarjuna would say, well, if things inherently existed, they couldn't produce an effect either, because they would have to be permanent. Now, I don't know if you have meditated much on impermanence, especially the subtle impermanence. But they say that's very close to the realization of emptiness. Because when you meditate on this on subtle impermanence, then the object is gone, right? As soon as you look at it, it's gone. And in fact, the Prasangika would divide any moment of an object, even a moment of consciousness, into the beginning of the moment, the middle of the moment, the end of the moment. And thus that moment and the thing that you're measuring by moments is continuously in flux. It never actually becomes anything from its own side. It's always in flux. So like the seed becomes the sprout, and the sprout becomes the plant, and the plant produces more seeds, and it's always in flux. And when you meditate on that, taking any object, especially yourself, like your body, if it's always in flux, then there's nothing that solid that is there, that has been achieved, because it's always in movement, right? It's always changing, continuously in flux. And therefore, the identities that we give to things are not derived from the object at all, because that object is always in flux. It's got a beginning, middle, and end, and it's always passing. So that can be a very useful experience, meditating on impermanence, to get a sense of what meditating on emptiness is like, in the sense that both of them have the feeling of no stability, right? It's like nothing you can count on. It's not really there, and we like to have a sense of concreteness, a sense of stability, and feeling like the Satrantika, I'm here. But it's always changing, always in flux. And then with emptiness, the identity is identified as purely a creation of thought and language. So then the identity that we were grasping onto for a sense of stability and concreteness and is not there at all. And one of the things about meditating on the emptiness of phenomena, when you're using the production, not production from self, not other, and so on, it's important to look at it on a momentary level. So if a cause, like a seed, if its identity is derived from its intrinsic essence, from its own side, like that, then that seed is supposed to produce a sprout, which is something other than the seed, right? And the sprout has its identity derived intrinsically from its own side. And so when you look at these two objects, we know, generally speaking, that the cause has to cease before the effect comes into existence, right? It's like the cause transforms into the effect. Generally speaking, if the cause and the effect exist at the same time, then they can't be have a cause and effect relationship. So the cause has to cease. So the seed has to cease. And then where does the sprout come from? If its cause has ceased. And then one might try to look for a point of contact between the two of them. But a point of contact would be what? Where there is a fraction of a moment in which the cause and the effect overlap each other. That would mean they would be existing at the same time. And then they couldn't have a cause and effect relationship. And then if the inherently existing seed is completely different from the inherently existing sprout. They're two totally different things. And if they can have a cause and effect relationship, then anything can produce that sprout. And like Chandrakirti will use an example of darkness producing light, because they don't have to have any relationship at all with each other. Because if the cause inherently exists and the effect inherently exists, they're two totally different things, unrelated to each other. So that's the kind of analysis that you would need to do when you analyze subject any phenomena other than the person to ultimate analysis. And then, of course, you can use the 7.1, which is basically 2 steps identifying whether it's the same, whether a thing is the same as its basis or is different, existing on its own. Showing that it doesn't exist on its own is independent of the basis is easy. So then the reasoning that you would apply, like in the case of the body, if the body inherently existed, well, then it would have to be one thing, because the body is one thing. But in fact, the body, there's only one body in terms of my body. There's only one body here in relation to other bodies. It's not because the essence of this physical form is one thing. In fact, it's many things, right? And then you look at all the different systems that are present and interacting, and all the way down to the atomic level. And with the atomic level, you can use even the reasoning that like an atom or the smallest particle that they've been able to identify is not intrinsically one thing, because it has directional parts. It has sides, top, bottom, front, back, right, left. And if it didn't have those, then you could never get an accumulation of them to build a bigger object. Is all that clear?
No.
Not? Which one is not? What's the
Well,
part?
when you're talking about a smallest
Particle,
particle,
physical particle.
yeah, the smallest particle is not one thing. So when we're saying that something is inherently existing, we're saying it's one thing.
Yes,
And if it's one thing, anyway, one thing can have sides. I mean, how can anything exist at all if it doesn't have sides to it or some,
that's right. That's right. And yet, if it has sides, then it's not inherently one. It's only one because in relation to other particles. Just like this body is one body, but its sense of being one body is only in relation to other bodies. It's not because the essence of this object is a singularity. It is composed of many parts.
so you're saying that if something is inherently existing, it exists, and if it's therefore not dependent on anything else, it also
Right.
doesn't exist relative to anything else.
It would just, yeah, its whole existence is relative to other things.
Yeah. Well, every existence is relative to other things.
Right.
But
Nothing
seems like something could be exist relative to other things. But not, it could exist relative to other things, but not be dependent on anything else.
If it exists in
for
relation
relative-
to other things, then it depends upon other things for its existence.
Right.
And then it wouldn't be independently existing. And if it's not independently existing, then it can't be inherently existing from its own essence.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, okay, I get that.
Yeah, and the example of the particle would be if you take a billiard ball
Mm,
and you put it in the center of the table, and then you put 4 other balls around it in the 4 cardinal directions.
mhm,
Okay. Now, if the center billiard ball was inherently one thing, not being dependent upon parts, then if you moved one of the balls that is to its side to touch that central billiard ball, then when it touched it, it would have to touch all the sides because they would all be the same. It would not have different sides. Can you
Mhm.
imagine that?
Well, it just makes it sound ridiculous to even think anything like it
I know.
exists independently.
That's right. But people like to think that that in order to have the solidity of the table to be able to support a glass of water,
Mm,
then where does that solidity come from? It
mm,
must come from these solid particles,
mhm,
right? And for like the Vibhasika, they assert a difference between a gross object and a subtle object. A gross object is an object that appears to the mind through an accumulation of subtle particles. It's actually, but a subtle particle by itself is not strong enough to make an impression to that we can perceive it. So you have to have a group of them, and then they work together to produce an effect such as a visual image.
mm,
Right? Well, their ability to form a table that will support anything you put on the table, like a glass of water, that has to come from the solidity of each particle, they say. And so they would then, assert that the particles would have to be free of parts in order to be solid. But we know that you can have forces at play like even magnetic forces, right? That is strong enough for a little magnet to attract all these iron shavings and everything without there being anything that you can see, right? So you could have still the relativity of energies interacting can support some other relative object. You know, at some point they may not. The particles of this table will not support a photon, maybe, or an X-ray. An X-ray may go right through it, right? But so it's like that. It's they are asserting the Weizsäcker are asserting partless particles because of this notion that, you know, well, where does the solidity come from? It has to come from these particles, and they're the smallest things there are, and so they have to be free from parts. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to support anything. They would kind of fall apart. So that's where the idea comes from.
I see. Yeah, because as you said, these people who take the Chittamatra view or the Svatantrika view, they're not stupid.
No,
They're scholars and very, very learned.
yes,
So why would they take, it seems to me that their idea of inherent existence is a little bit different. They couldn't have the same idea of inherent existence and believe that something was inherently existing, according to what you just talked about.
right. Yeah, but
So it seems it seems to me what it's about is trying to make sure you don't fall into one of the two extremes. And I would think that the Chittamatrans or the Svatantrikas think that the Prasangikas, it's too easy for them to fall into the nihilistic view.
true. And then Nagarjuna replies that they are going to be victims of an eternalistic extreme. Or they could be victims of the nihilistic extreme when they assert inherent existence, which would, being independent of causes and effects, would then undermine karma. Then they would be in a nihilistic extreme.
So they must have talked about those different views because they felt it was helpful to whoever they were talking to.
Yeah, but you know, I mean, they would actually take a side. Like there's a famous debate between Chandra Goman, who was a Chittamatran and a famous poet. He wrote some beautiful things, and debating Chandrakirti. And they debated so long. It wasn't as if Chandrakirti could just dismiss Chandra Goman's arguments easily. They debated so long that it was said that the herders in the fields understood the subtle differences between Chittamatra and Prasangika.
Right. Okay. Are we going to talk about chapter? Well, there was chapter 24, insight requires analysis, and chapter 25, union of insight and serenity.
Yes. So, you know, so there's a lot of wrong views regarding meditating on ultimate reality that say that analysis is one has to leave aside analysis. And for, you know, one of the famous holders of the wrong view was Hoshan. the Chinese master that there was the big debate in Samye, and Kamalashila had been invited from India to debate him, and it was in front of the king of Tibet and all that kind of stuff. But this is still a common view amongst even today. But it's very clear with Lama Tsongkhapa, and he quotes, these classical texts, that in order to generate insight into ultimate reality, you have to use analysis. And we can compare that with achieving calm abiding, right? Serenity, shine. When you meditate on the object of calm abiding, you don't analyze the object. You try to use just an image or just your knowledge that you're breathing. If you're trying to generate calm abiding using emptiness, it's a little difficult, but it's possible. And you would have to analyze a bit, and every time you would lose the object, you have to analyze to bring the object back. But once you bring once you recall the object, then you hold it without any analysis. Okay? Whereas when you're developing the state of mind called insight, then you have to exercise analysis. And in the chapter, there's a bunch of different kinds of analysis that are mentioned, right? There's a 4-point analysis, and then the second point is divided into, the second point I think is divided into 3, and it's also divided into 6. And there's all kinds of ways to analyze the object, but you're supposed to do analysis. And so the whole point of that chapter is to impress upon the reader that analysis is not something that is an obstacle to developing insight into reality. It is the method to develop insight, and this method is verified by all these classical texts that Lama Tsongkhapa quotes.
Mhm.
And it's like even right now when we meditate on emptiness, because we're studying it, so we should be trying to meditate on it. You would be analyzing it until something comes to mind that seems like, oh, this seems to be it, and then you would hold that, right, single-pointedly for as long as you can until you lose the object, and then you may be just meditating on space. And so then you have to bring it back by doing some analysis and then bring it back. Whereas when you get to the stage of insight meditation, then there's a lot more analysis that's done. And this brings us to that next chapter of, so calm abiding is achieved when you achieve what? You go through the 9 stages of developing calm abiding, right? There's 5 obstacles, 8 antidotes, 4 attentions, 9 stages. And after the 9th one, which is, I think, equanimity or something like that, then you have to keep at it until you develop pliancy, right? Which is some special ability to put your mind on an object without any resistance from body and mind. So you have pliancy of the mind, pliancy of the body. And that's all he talks about. Whereas in other commentaries that I've had on developing Shine, they say that on the basis of pliancy, then like the pliancy of the body produces a pliancy of the body produces, no, the pliancy of the mind produces a bliss of the body, and the bliss of the body produces a bliss of the mind. So when you have these blisses of body and mind on the basis of pliancy of body and mind, then you've achieved calm abiding. And then you're ready to do the actual insight meditation, because insight in this context, the insight meditation is something that you do after you achieve calm abiding. And the point of the insight meditation is that your analysis actually takes you through the 9 stages, employing the 4 types of mental engagement or attention focused on the object, and it generates the pliancy of the body and the pliancy of the mind. The analysis itself does. And normally, you know, on an ordinary person's level, when you analyze an object, you're not going to be able to sustain single-pointed concentration on it, because analysis, by its very nature, looks at different aspects of the object, right? Looks at the meaning of the words, looks at the time of does it exist in the past, the present, the future, looks at characteristics of whether they're specifically existing characteristics or general characteristics, looks at categories of good and bad, you know, like that. It's going all around the object and asking all kinds of questions about it. And so you're moving quite a bit, which is totally different from single-pointed concentration. So with cultivating insight, the analysis itself it's sustained by calm abiding, but the analysis itself actually will generate the ability to stay on the object. So analysis stops being an obstacle for single-pointedness, an obstacle for cultivating pliancy of body and mind. They give an example. I've heard this example given, and that's a fish swimming under the water without moving the surface of a calm lake, like that. So the calm lake is this single-pointed concentration, the shine, the calm abiding, and the analytical faculty of the mind is like the fish swimming in it, analyzing, looking and at different aspects of the object, and without causing you to lose your single-pointedness and falling into distraction. And you have different opinions on how to do that, whether you can do that all in the same session or one session. You'll cultivate the calm abiding to ensure that you maintain it, because you can lose it. If you don't practice it, you lose it. And then in another session, you do the analysis like that. So, but eventually, over time, your analysis itself will develop pliancy of body and mind. And when you have that, then you have what they refer to as the union of calm abiding and insight. And then that's the first, when you have that, the first moment of that union is the first moment of the path of preparation, which is the second of the 5 Buddhist paths, right? Accumulation, preparation, seeing, meditation, and no more learning. Yes, Bob.
So the question that comes to mind is when you're doing analytical meditation, you can't be doing calm abiding, because they're not like opposites, but if you're analyzing something, you're going through some kind of a structured or unstructured, but some kind of pattern of figuring things out, which requires analysis. And it's then, if it's calm abiding, the mind is like penetrating an object or something, but there's not the distraction.
It's
what you're
single
saying is
pointed.
you have to go back and forth between the two until you reach what you're saying is one of the stages of the path of preparation, where the two, the pliancy and the pliancy and the analysis can start to come together, correct?
Yes. Yes. So during the path of accumulation, if you haven't already generated karma abiding before you get to the path of accumulation, then you have to generate it there. And then on the basis of the karma abiding, then you cultivate insight, which is this, which is an analytical meditation. So the karma abiding, it's not an analysis of the object. You bring an image to mind and you hold it. You don't think about the image, right?
But you can develop some level of insight without having, karma abiding, correct or not correct?
Well, it's a question of terminology here. The insight that we're talking about here, Lakton, or Vipassana, that one arises on the basis of karma abiding. Having an understanding of emptiness is not the same thing as that insight.
Now, are you talking about an inferential understanding of emptiness?
Well, even the insight level uses an inferential understanding of emptiness. It is a conceptual knowledge of emptiness. So it arises through inference.
But at some point, that inference,
You can generate that inference before you generate karma abiding.
okay, but that inference you're saying is not actual insight.
It's not the insight that is known as Vipassana or Plakton, or sometimes translated as penetrative insight.
Why? It's not, what's the difference?
Because you can have a correct understanding of emptiness before you generate karma abiding. And you can't have the insight, which is Vipassana, without already having karma abiding. And that's one of the reasons why in the six perfections, wisdom comes after meditative stability or meditation. And also in the presentation of the three, what's it called? To achieve the nirvana of the person of medium scope, there are the three, what are they, paths? Or, one is morality.
Higher trainings?
Yeah, the three higher trainings. And the higher training in wisdom comes after the higher training in meditation.
Yeah, concentration, yeah.
And so that what they're referring to by that order is that what's being referred to as insight here, this term insight, is referring to a special level of analysis. That is supported, it's based upon karma abiding.
But it's still conceptual,
Oh yeah, it's still conceptual.
yeah. So it's a deeper understanding or realization or something.
Yes, it's definitely deeper because you're going. One way to understand it is that what we're after is a non-conceptual direct experience, right?
Hmm.
And to get a non-conceptual direct experience, you have to exhaust your mind's ability to apprehend objects through the power of conception. And when you apprehend an object through the power of conception, you're doing it through a process that Dharmakirti and Dignaga talked about, of the object is an elimination of everything that it's not. So when you think of the house that you lived in when you were 6 years old, that memory is a concept, okay? And what comes to mind are what your conceptual mind is grasping at is the opposite of everything that house is not, the opposite of what it's not. And then your mind also produces memories to give you an image of that, but your conceptual mind apprehends an object which is the opposite of everything that it is not. So when you're going through this process of insight, which is supported by pliancy, physical and mental pliancy, you can place your object, your attention on the object effortlessly, even with enjoyment. And neither your body will create an interference, nor your mind will create an interference. And yet but your mind can analyze this object from every point of view. So you're eliminating more and more of what the object is not, right? You're eliminating more and more of it until you come down to where you can't eliminate anything more. And you have it, a direct experience of that object.
And you would say that that would be a non-affirming negation.
You would,
Yea or-
well, yeah, for sure. I mean, you have to, I mean, emptiness is a non-affirming negation.
Okay, let me ask you a question, because if what you're saying is the way that one achieves insight, the passion, whatever, why don't we just send everybody out and say, go meditate until you attain a state of calm abiding, and then come back and talk to me.
You could.
But who would do it?
It's pretty hard to do.
We know of
Pretty hard to do.
somebody
Like,
who
for
tried to
instance,
that.
yeah,
And
well, when I had to leave India because my Indian visa expired, and the visa that I bought didn't work anymore because it was based on the one that had expired. I had to leave my studies at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives, and then I did the Everest trek. And while I was doing the Everest trek, I ran into Zina Rashevsky, who said, "Oh, you're one of those people who study at the Library of Tibetan Works and Archives who filled up notebooks full of words, and then spend the rest of the day smoking your chillums." And she said, and look at you, you're probably thinking of going to either Japan or Australia to make money. She says, you're probably thinking of going to Japan because they have Buddhism there. And so you think, well, I'll go to Japan because I'm studying Buddhism, I like it, I'll have Buddhism there. And that's exactly what I was thinking. And she says, she says, you should look at yourself. She says, you're this young American kid who there's no reason in the world why you should even be here in this part of the world, let alone have an interest in Buddhism. You think all Buddhism is the same? The fact that you found one type of Buddhism that really caught you means you should be focused on that. And what people do at this time of the year, she said, is they go up in the mountains and they do a retreat and they meditate on what they'd been taught. And so I said, but I've only got a 2-week trekking visa. And then she said, when was the last time you saw a cop? Good
That's
point.
true.
And I said, but what about when I get back to Kathmandu? I'll be illegal. And she said, stop in here on the way back and I'll tell you how to do it. I've been living in this country for years. I'm an expert getting around the visa problem, she said. So the only thing I knew how to meditate on after studying Introduction to Buddhism with Geshe Dargay was calm abiding.
Wow.
So that's what I did. I had the line drawing print of Shakyamuni
Yeah.
Buddha, put it in front of me, look at it, close my eyes, try to image, get it, look at it, give myself a headache because I was trying to see it with my eyes, but my eyes were closed, so I was giving myself a headache. So then I opened my eyes a little bit and the headache went away and did all of these things. But it was, I got some advantages of it. I stopped spending all my time imagining things that I wished I could do, and I wasn't
Like,
creating the
like
causes for
smoking,
them.
like smoking your chillum, huh?
Yeah, I stopped. Well, I wasn't smoking. Did I have any with me? I know when I started the trek, I had a good chunk of it. But yeah, so but it's really hard because you have to be willing to not think of anything else, and you have to have the right environment. It's not easy to have the right environment. And like Song Rinpoche once mentioned that he heard of people trying to develop calm abiding who would live in a completely dark place, and they would have set up like ropes so they could move around in the dark by holding the rope to be able to get to whether the bathroom is or where the food was, things like that. But it's just not easy because at any time you think of something else, like hearing a sound or whatever, you're no longer single pointed. So it's definitely not easy.
It's not easy living in a city and having a Meshuggah mind to start with, to be able to even have good concentration doing anything,
Yeah.
except for samsaric activities. Very
Right.
good concentration on that, right?
But like you take also Alan Wallace, like he was the star of Geshe Rapton's school in Switzerland. And at a certain point, he decided that the only way he was going to be able to satisfy his need to grow in his understanding of Buddhism was to cultivate calm abiding.
Mhm.
And so he left the Recon monastery there in Switzerland, and he went to meditate up on the hillside above Makladganj, where these other Tibetan meditators were. And he was getting a sense of progress because he found some texts that said, well, if you can hold the object for 5 minutes, then you've completed the first of the 9 stages, and then you meditate. If you can hold it for 10 minutes, you've completed the second. And in order to complete the fourth, the thorough mindfulness I think is the fourth one. In order to cultivate that, you have to hold the object for 20 minutes. He could only get to 18 or 19. He could never hit 20. And then he was so kind of frustrated that he one time found himself betting on whether some insect was going to cross the floor of his cabin and make it out the door. And he thought, I have to talk to somebody
It was mine. It was
to
totally
sustain my enthusiasm, because here I am totally. And he talked to this one monk, and the monk told him that he meditated on the perfect human rebirth. It just gave him so much joy. And Alan couldn't do that. He just, it was too conceptual for him to get his joy that way. And then he started to have health problems. So then he found an expert hatha yoga teacher in India to teach him hatha yoga to overcome his back problems. But he's stuck with it. He's probably the most knowledgeable person that I know on calm abiding. You know, in the Tibetans, they say that, well, we try to we use you know, completion stage, and yet, you know, Alan brings up the point, well, even to make completion stage meditation work, you have to have good concentration. And even in the highest tantras, they say that first you should accomplish calm abiding on the generation stage before you then move to completion stage practices. So, and then one master I talked to, he said, well, when you just choose one object within the mandala, whether it's the whole mandala or whether it's just an eye of the deity or something like that, he said, then you can cultivate calm abiding on the basis of that. But then if you move from the most subtle syllable in your heart chakra to then go further out to all of the implements the deity is holding, and then look at the inside of the mansion and all the beams and the way they're set up, and then the outside of the mansion and who's standing on the plinth on the outside of the building, and the wish fulfilling trees, and then moving on to the Vajra wall, and then beyond that the wall of fire, and then the cemeteries, unless you're meditating on Vajrayogini, then they're inside the wall, right? But if you're meditating on Guhya Samaja, there's no cemeteries because it was inappropriate for the king, Indrabodhi, to meditate in cemeteries. But when you go through all of those details and then come back again, he says, that's cultivating the insight faculty of the mind. So you can do both calm abiding and insight at the generation stage. And then, you know, there are some completion stage practices you can do at the time of generation stage. But in order to make those work, you have to have good concentration, right? I mean, I knew one guy, an Englishman, he was given the object of the short ah, you know, that you meditate on when you're trying to develop tumo within the Haruka practice. And the short ah is, you know, it's only a part of the ah. It kind of looks like a thorn going up to a tip. And he almost went blind. I wish, because he was trying to see it with his eyes, and his eyes were closed, right? And nobody told him. He went to talk to some you know, Geshe or whatever that was in Tushita Meditation Center, and the Geshe pulls out a text, and my friend lost complete hope at that point. Says, why does a master need to pull out a text and read words? Tell me from your experience. So, you know, it's hard to stay with that object. You have to have the sense that there's nothing else in the world you'd rather do than meditate on this one object for as long as it takes.
But isn't the advantage of practicing some of the Tantra is that it actually helps to combine like to me, you know, like you're doing a dissolution or something. You're basically dissolving the whole world into smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until, you know, you go from the black near attainment to the mind of clear light. And to me, that seems like it's a very useful tool.
There's no doubt about it.
To develop both.
No doubt about it's useful. You know, even meditating on the different stages of the Lam Rim without having calm abiding and so on is also useful. It helps, you know, you can do the various practices to develop, you know, renunciation or bodhicitta, things like that. Meditate in perfect human rebirth to develop a sense of understanding the purpose of life All of that is really useful. It's just that the yogis and to be a yogi, you have to have reached that path of preparation
Mhm.
where you've unified the calm abiding and penetrative insight. That's the real yogi, according to Geshe Nauman Darghe. It's not just a name you give people who are meditating, but their experience, their quality of mind, their quality of attention is just at a higher level. You know, one master was saying that you should try to get calm abiding and then meditate on bodhicitta meditation, whether it's the seven-step method or exchanging yourself with other method. But in order to if you use calm abiding to meditate on bodhicitta, once you've been able to generate the thought of bodhicitta, then you can very quickly reach that stage of effortless bodhicitta, and then you're on the path of accumulation. But to move from an effortful bodhicitta to an effortless bodhicitta, that requires the force of familiarity, right?
Mhm.
And that's something that you kind of perfect in cultivating calm abiding. But there's certainly an advantage to meditating on bodhicitta, even without calm abiding.
When I was was starting out, you would do meditation like the perfect human rebirth, and you would get to the point where you could rest in the understanding.
Rest
Right?
in what?
Rest in the understanding that you reached from the meditation. It's that's all I have to say. It just seems to me that what you're resting in is trying to get, it's not calm abiding, but it's something that it gives you the feeling of the proper results of that kind of meditation.
Right. But as you know from looking at like the chapter on calm abiding within the great exposition of the stages of the path, that resting could have a disadvantage, because in order to have real single-pointedness, you have to have not be affected by mental laxity, right?
Yeah.
And if you stay in a state of mental laxity, it can cause you to become more dull-minded.
Stupid. That's what I'm calling myself.
That is the preferred word, but so what do you think? Are we done?
I
We're
have
never
a
done.
question.
Yes.
Because I was thinking that when they use the word serenity, like the union of insight and serenity, that serenity is different from calm abiding.
No, that's just another translation of Shine, of
Really?
Shamatha. Oh yeah, it's
Because
just.
because there's a
And
difference
Alan Wallace
between,
has another term that he translates Shine. He calls it quiescence.
Mm.
right.
And calm abiding is a more familiar term. I think Hopkins came up with that one.
Because it seems like, well, I mean, all I know is the English. but serenity seems like a different thing to me than calm abiding. And serenity is something that I was thinking you could arrive at if you have once you have a pliancy of mind due to insight.
The way that the term serenity is used in this this translation is it's a translation of shine or shamatha,
Okay,
which is also translated as calm abiding.
okay. All right. So,
Hmm?
Someday, a group of Western scholars and Tibetans and whatever will get together and say, this is what we're going to refer to this as, because I've always found it confusing when translators use like the same, they use different words for the same thing. It's just, to me,
right.
it's always been confusing.
Well, in Tibet, it required having a king to decide. And they gathered them all together, and the king says, okay, now you're going to have to choose. And then they had to choose. But, we don't have that same power.
Until the election, we'll have a new king.
Yeah, or a queen,
Yeah, well,
hopefully. A
he
queen.
eventually died and was replaced by Langdharma, who started off as a Buddhist, but then became a Bon practitioner and persecuted Buddhism. There's disadvantages of kings as well. So, but when I say, are we done? I'm saying, is this the last session?
We don't know. I don't know.
It's up to
What do you
Pende.
think? I mean, are we ready to get teaching? Is it Sirkong Rinpoche who's coming?
Yes.
When?
Are we
When?
ready?
When is he coming? That's when he's.
Because we've covered all the topics in the text.
Yeah.
We could meet again, but that's your time, right?
Mhm.
What do you mean that's your time?
I think it's good to take the 2 months off again, or a month and a half, and then do it.
It's also your time.
All right.
But he enjoys it.
Well, I have to start thinking about the Copan course
Oh,
Why?
because I'm teaching it this year.
In November.
Yes.
Oh, you are.
I
I
am.
see. Okay, so, I mean, if you want to have another session, if you have time for another session, we could, but I suppose it's not really necessary since we went through all the chapters already.
can you tell us when Rinpoche is coming?
I do not know,
I don't think it's scheduled.
but I know that he just finished teaching in Italy. So, and he just left there, and I guess he's going back to India. I don't know what his schedule is, but I know that before he came here, the last time he was here, he taught in Italy. So I'm just seeing these photographs of him in Instituto Lama Tsongkhapa, and big smiles on his face, and I'm thinking, boy, we have to keep those smiles on his face when he starts to ask us questions about the insight chapter of the Lamrim Chenmo.
So anyway, it sounds like it hasn't been scheduled yet.
Not that I know of.
Okay.
You may be in
I think it's
India.
not until 2025.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
You have plenty of time for another session.
yeah.
Well, keep us posted if there is.
It's your decision.
Right.
many people are in there?
Oh, yeah, how many people are there where you're at?
How many people are where I'm at?
In this
Just
room?
one, Chuck.
So that means there's me, you, Chuck, and Toby.
Yes.
Well, if we have if we have a question, we can text you, right?
Yeah, text me or email me, either one.
I think you should come to LA and teach.
Long River.
Not this, obviously, but
Yeah, well, fortunately, you're getting Song Rinpoche in October, right?
October
Yes.
14th to the 21st.
Yeah.
No, the 14th through the 21st or something.
Right.
He's teaching the Precious Garland.
Precious Garland. Okay, that's Nagarjuna.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think the first chapter is all about emptiness.
You know what? I was looking in this book today that where the first chapter is insight. I mean, I think chapter 1 says it's insight in this book, the one that we're in.
Right.
I just found that interesting.
Well, it's
Well,
definitely,
you're not coming down for Song Rinpoche.
I'm not.
Hmm.
It's just,
We can do it
the very
online.
fact that I'm going to teach that course for a month, and then I'm going to a wedding of my brother's daughter. So I'm going to be there for a week, and then I'll come back. So I'll be away for like 6 weeks, and I haven't been away that long from my wife and daughter. So they're having to, they're already complaining.
How old is your daughter, Pende?
30.
Ah,
30. Yeah.
no, 30. Hmm. Well, this is probably the last session then, it sounds
I
like.
think so.
Okay. Well, thank you for being
Otherwise,
patient.
we're just repeating ourselves, right?
Yes.
But I like the idea of sending me questions, because, it's good to keep studying this because it's hard to meditate on it. But
Yes.
reading about this, reading the text on it is easier. Like one of the things that I'm studying to prepare for the Kopan course is the middle length Lam Rim. And so that has its own section on insight and Kama abiding. So I'm looking forward to staying with the subject because it's hard to meditate on it without, and easier to study it and then kind of thinking about it while you're reading.
Right.
Yeah, I just picked up this book.
Stages of meditation.
Yeah.
Well, Sheila.
Oh my goodness.
Kamala Sheila.
Which one is it? First, second, or third?
I don't know.
You
It's
did 3. Who published it?
it's published by Shambhala, I think, but let me check. I just got it, so I haven't.
Okay.
I can't even open a page. Jeremy Russell is one of them.
So great. There's so many things out there.
Right.
We
And then
started,
thank you so much.
There was virtually nothing.
Okay.
I don't know what this is.
I've really enjoyed spending time with you guys.
I really enjoyed it too, and I'm sorry to see it come to an end.
Yeah.
And
And I thank you. You challenge us all.
no, it's so helpful. I mean, I could go through the whole thing again. We could go
Yeah.
through the whole thing again. It would be like a whole new thing.
I know.
A whole, but anyway,
Well, we'll do something again, like maybe we'll do the middle length Lamarim. Because Lama Tsongkhapa, he did not like to repeat himself.
Uh-huh.
So he would refer to, oh, look at the great exposition of the stages of the path. That's where I covered the topic, you know.
Mhm.
So we can do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You should come to LA. I know a group of people who used to go to the Nature Center, which closed now, who might enjoy having somebody teach them.
Well, it may be possible, but not right away. I have to get my girls ready for that.
Okay.
Okay,
So when are you going to be leaving, in November or earlier?
yeah, I'm gonna leave, I think the 1st of November. I'll
Okay.
get there on the 3rd. The course begins on the 8th. By the 8th, I should be over my jet lag and all that kind of stuff.
Uh-huh. And then you'll be back when?
I'll be back from Costa Rica
Oh, wow, that's great.
on the 16th of December.
Oh, okay. Costa Rica, wonderful. I'd love to go there.
Yeah,
This is a destination wedding.
yeah, yeah. I'm a little bit, anyway. I promised. And I promised before I was asked to do the Copan course, so in any case. I'm trying to find a way to end the recording here, and it's not giving me that. So maybe it stopped. In any case, I'm going to end.
Okay.
Bye.
But, you know, this is merely labeled, right? It's
Yeah.
not really ending. We still have more karma.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Oh,
so.
yeah. All righty. We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.